Shabbat Shalom. I apologize in advance for what I'm about to do as we go backwards and take a little bit of a flashback to our high school days. I'm going to start with a pop quiz. So close your Chumashim. Do not steal answers from your neighbors. We're going to go into a pop quiz all about the halakha of Shabbat. Ready? It's going to happen. Here we go. So we're going to use as our paradigm a guy named Plony. Plony is our guy. So we're going to be talking about what Plony can and can't do on Shabbat. So here are the rules. I'm going to tell you a little explanation, a little anecdote. And if you think that Plony violated Shabbat, then raise your hand. Okay? Is that clear? So let's start easy and we'll get harder. So Plony is walking on Shabbat with a backpack on his shoulder, and Plony passes the Eruv. Raise your hand if you think Plony is in violation of Shabbat. Okay, about halfway there. All right, I think the majority said he violated Shabbat. We're 1 for 1. Okay, Plony violated Shabbat. Plony, on Friday night, Shabbat has already come in, Plony has decided that he's going to have a bonfire. So Plony goes into his backyard and he starts a bonfire. Did Plony violate Shabbat? Okay. All right, we're 2 for 2. We're getting a little bit harder now. Plony is told that he violated Shabbat by starting a bonfire. So he says, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm going to extinguish it. I'm going to put some water on it. I'll make sure that it goes out. Did Plony violate Shabbat? Okay. We're getting a little bit harder now. Plony has a little bit of menucha during his Shabbat day. He has a little time to himself, and he decides to go for a run. Changes into his gear, puts on his tennis shoes, goes out for a run around the neighborhood. Did Plony violate Shabbat? Okay, we're a little uncertain here. So listen, all of this is Jewish law, so we can argue about if he violated Shabbat or not. But I would say, no, he didn't violate Shabbat. So I think we're still good. I think we're still in the same category here. I think we're doing well. Plony is spending his Shabbat, and he has his little bit of extra time, and he realizes he doesn't like the furniture the way it is in his house. So Plony picks up the chair, and he picks up the sofa, and rearranges the furniture within his home. Did Plony violate Shabbat? Okay, all right. So I'm going to disagree with you all on that one. One more. Plony has a little bit of menucha. He has a little bit of downtime in his day on Shabbat. He decides that he has some work to do, so he gets out his briefcase, picks up all of the memos that he needs to read, and reads through his memos on Shabbat that he had that are due on Monday, and he just reads through them. Did he violate Shabbat? I'm going to disagree with you again. So listen, the reason, first of all, give yourselves a round of applause. That was very good. I thought you guys did a fantastic job. The reason that I'm bringing this up is because I think that this is very important. I think it is a misconception about how we understand the laws of Shabbat and how we understand Shabbat in general. We have an idea that this idea of malacha, of the things we can and can't do on Shabbat, are directly related to our own efforts, our energy, how we're expending that energy. We think of it as a day of menucha v'simcha, which is right. It is a day of rest and of joy. But it's not necessarily, the idea of work isn't necessarily tied into what we're doing to work. So bear with me here. And just in that same manner, it's not related to what we do for our careers. It's not related to our jobs. And I'll tell you why this is important. Because what Assistant Cantor Gutman read for us today in the Torah portion is all about the malacha, all about the laws that we can't do on Shabbat. And I know that sounds not quite accurate, considering we were reading all about the Mishkan. But the idea of the things that are prohibited to us on Shabbat all come from the construction of the Mishkan. That is the malacha. That is the work that we are forbidden to do. So there are traditionally a few different categories, but there are 39 categories of work that are related to the Mishkan and the construction of the Mishkan, and it is those elements of work that we are prohibited from on Shabbat. Those are broken down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, usually 6 different categories. Field work, which includes sowing, plowing, reaping, binding sheaves, threshing, winnowing, selecting, grinding, sifting, kneading, baking. Making the materials for the curtains is a second part of building the Mishkan. So the verbs that go in along with that, the prohibitions that go along with making these material curtains include shearing wool, cleaning, combing, dyeing, spinning, stretching threads, making loops, sewing, tearing, making leather curtains. These are where we get our prohibitions for trapping, slaughtering, skinning, tanning, smoothing, ruling lines, or cutting. Making the beams for the Mishkan. That is where we get the prohibitions for writing and erasing. Putting up and taking down of the Mishkan. That is where we get the prohibition for building, constructing, and also for taking something down. And the Mishkan's final touches, the final touches when the Mishkan was finally completed, extinguishing a fire, kindling a fire, striking the final hammer blow, and carrying. So all of these ideas of what we can and can't do on Shabbat, we tend to think about them in our heads about the things that are causing us a lot of energy. We feel like we can't go for a run, we can't lift heavy things, we can't do things like that, but that's not what our Torah is telling us. The Torah is telling us, separate that idea of work. That's not quite what we're getting at. The idea of work, and this is the important part here, the idea of work is that for this one day, for these 25 hours, we don't have to build the Mishkan. We don't have to build God's holy place. And we can talk about why that is, but my drash on this would be that Shabbat builds the Mishkan for us. For 6 days during the week, it is up to us to build the Mishkan. We have to build God's home. But whether we're prepared to or not, on that seventh day, on that day that we call Shabbat, when we rest, Shabbat does the work. Shabbat builds God's house for us. Which doesn't mean that we don't have to fill our Shabbatot with joy and with singing and all of the good things that make God's dwelling place even better and even brighter. But it's important not so much for what's prohibited to us on Shabbat, but in the way that it makes us think about what we're supposed to be doing for those other 6 days. So if we rearrange and we think about it a different way, if we define the work that we're prohibited from a different way, then the counter to that is, though we are prohibited from this work for 25 hours, we are dafka mandated and obligated to do that work for 6 days. And that work isn't going to our careers, isn't going to our jobs, isn't about energy. Those are important things to do. We have to do them. We have to be able to provide an income and to be able to live. But the work we're commanded to do for 6 days is to build a Mishkan. It's to build God's home. And that's hard. And that is powerful, and that is holy work, because it's not telling us to physically go build a structure. It is telling us to take all of these different categories of work and to apply them to our Jewish lives. To kindle a fire. We're dafka told to kindle a fire during those 6 days. And it's up to us to interpret what that means. It's up to us to be required to build something. What do we build? What do we construct? Maybe we build friendships. Maybe we build relationships. Maybe the fire that we're kindling is the fire of prayer to God. Or maybe it's a fire of giving tzedakah, of charity. But whatever those 39 malachot are on Shabbat that we don't do, they are supposed to be the impetus for us to be better people for those other 6 days. All of those ideas of building the Mishkan, of building God's home, that falls on us for the other 6 days. So just as I started with a pop quiz, I think it's appropriate to send us all home with homework. And you know, I've been on this kick of kind of giving us challenges lately, so I'm going to do another one. I have here a list of the 39 malachot. All of the things from trapping and skinning and spinning and dyeing and igniting a fire and carrying. And your homework is to go home after Shabbat and to Google these 39 malachot, this work that we're forbidden from on Shabbat, and to pick one of them, any one you want, and to find a way to apply it to the other 6 days of your life and to turn it into a positive way to build a temple for God. Be creative, interpret it in whatever way you'd like. Some of these can be really creative. I'm very excited to see what someone's going to be doing with skinning and tanning and smoothing. It's going to be fantastic. But what I want to encourage you to do, again, this is totally up to you, but what I would encourage you to do is to send me to go over this and maybe talk about it at lunch, or just spend some time after Shabbat and to mull it over. Pick one of these, and when you have, email me what you're doing. Tell me what you're going to do. And if you're okay, then let me know if I can share it and put it on our social media and out on our emails, because I would love for everyone to kind of see the creative approach to this. But I think this is a beautiful way for us to reinterpret what we think of as Shabbat and what we think of as the rest of our week. Because it is a day of menucha and simcha. It is a day of rest and it is a day of joy. But it's also a day for us to think about the ways that we're building God's home. Shabbat right now is building God's holy place. For the other 6 days, that's up to us. So with that, I'll say Shabbat Shalom. I look forward to reading your different ideas. And again, if there's anyone that feels comfortable with me throwing them out there and putting them out into the world, that would be greatly appreciated. So thank you in advance. And again, Yasher Koach on the pop quiz. Shabbat Shalom.